I got stuck out in the middle of fucking nowhere in Iraq, in a tank we called Shithouse. Yes, it had a real name and a real call sign, but we called it Shithouse. Deal with it. Anyway, all they had is to provide fire support and run patrols during the day so that people see us and think, oh shit, a tank, I better not stir shit up tonight. Mostly, it seemed like they looked at us and thought, damn, that is one loud and annoying piece of machinery. We finally got a chance to see some combat, or at least a break from running circles around broadcast forums. Soldiers on the ground north of us were getting fired on every night, and when morning finally came, there were no enemy bodies to be found, so Brass sent us a little south, along a riverbed that they thought the enemy was using as a highway, and we were to sit way off and watch this dried up riverbed through the thermal and cauterize every movement. So, we are moving along near sunset in a 3-tank V, when the first position tank hits the brakes and tells us there is a civilian in the road ahead. Ricky, Shithouse's loving commander, looks out the top, along with the other two, and see what's up. Nothing out there. We pull back in and start moving. This was a fairly common occurrence. The heat out there can literally mirror ground ahead of you. Really neat actually when it happens. We hit spots the next right and pull tight, checking the scopes for anything hot out there in the riverbed. It was about this time that the feeling started. I would describe it as static. In a tank, you get used to it being hot and stuffy, but this was more like an abundance of energy that made the muscles in your chest pull up and your heart beat too fast. I leaned back from the thermal and made a little small talk with Rick when we started to hear little clinking noises on the outside of the metal. We immediately shot into action, as little clinks typically mean some stupid ass is shooting at us with small arms. I look through the thermal arm and am completely confused by what I see. Solid white. Well, that can't be right. I kept looking through it. Then, a circle came into view, less hot than its surroundings, and pulled back, forming a silhouette of a head. Someone was on the tank. It seemed to hear something, as it straightened up like an alert animal and looked off in the distance, then vanished in a blur. Well, everything in thermal leaves a blur, I guess. I told Rick, and he got on the radio and asked the tank nearest to us to come and scratch our back, shoot whatever was on us off. The other tank started moving. That is when tank number 3 came on the line and said that something had tried to pull their commander out of the hatch, and the only reason it did not succeed is because the gunner and loader grabbed onto him in time, but he got clawed up bad. There was absolute terror in the voice of Tank 3's commander. Whatever he saw was not right. I watched the other 2 tanks form up on IVIS, where our driver said he could see someone on the ground in front of us. I checked my scope. Sure enough, there was a white object on the ground about 100 feet in front of us. A crouching, seemingly naked object. Run that fucker over was Rick's response to this, and as soon as the driver touched the gas, the thing started running at us on all fours. I caught sight of it as it ran over the top of the tank, silently hoping to myself that whatever it was got toasted by the exhaust as it ran off the back of the tank. He's still on you, shithouse. You want me to clear him? We heard over the radio, to which Rick replied, toast him. We will inspect the pieces, which was quickly followed by nice, satisfying little clinking noises against our thick, badass hide. 3 bursts, then silence, followed by, looks like you're cleared. Rick cocked his sidearm and popped out of the hatch, turning left and right, filling the tank with glorious fresh air. He seemed to hear something as he leaned over the side of the tank. Then, panic. 4 shots came off from his sidearm, and then a scream, and he started to fall back into the hatch. Something had him by the collar. It looked like a human hand, only black and leathery, with long, sharp nails. Both I and the loader started trying to unwrap it. God, was it skin hot. Somewhere in the struggle, I remember looking up and seeing the reflection off of 2 black eyes, silhouetted against the Iraq stars, and could hear the sound of labor breathing. This whole event lasted less than maybe a second, when Rick got himself together and lunged forward, breaking the thing's arm backwards on the hatch opening with a sickening crunch. I mean, sickening. That was the first time I've ever heard a bone break, and the first time I heard a scream, anything like that thing. Think dying rabbit multiplied by 10. A high-pitched scream that you could only hear where your spine attaches to your neck. Whatever it was decided it had enough of that and ran off, and we sailed up the tank until sunrise. Tank 2 had watched all of it happen on their thermal, but still could not believe Rick or Tank 3 Commander's story. I guess it's understandable, because those thermals make the world look like a giant blob. When they were finally able to see each other in person though, everyone believed. Rick showed his torn shirt, but Tank 3's commander took the cake. He had scratches all over his face, neck, and left arm. I don't know if it was some sort of desert wild man or what, but shit ain't right over there anyways. That's the tamest of most of the other ghost stories that get passed around. I will see if I can get any of the infantries and forward them to you. I have the rest of that story, which takes place over the next 2 or 3 years. If you want to hear really scary stuff, just ask someone on the front lines. The scariest thing in the world can be a child walking up to you with a covered basket over there. Rick was pretty popular for a while after that event, but since he absolutely hated telling that story, things died out pretty quick, and nothing really happened for a few months, and pretty soon it was winter. We were in a house, doing one of the many impromptu briefings, when a feeble old man walked in and sat down. He was the father of the village elder, too old to actually rule, but still a prominent figure in the communities. He was well respected by us too, unlike his son, but that's getting too far into personal stories. Let's just say that the elder liked to kick ass, and his son was a coward. So, the briefing cleared up, and Rick grabbed me and an interpreter and caught up with the elder, and asked if he had time for a few questions. The old man threw up his hands and smiled, motioning us to the shade, speaking Arabic laughingly through worn-out teeth and a sharp grey beard. If only you Americans spent as much time letting us ask questions. Rick told the story of that day. The translator's eyes got bigger. The elder gradually closed his eyes and relaxed, looking like he fell asleep, but drumming his fingers together to let us know he was still awake. When Rick was finished, the elder spoke in slow sentences, repeating things a few times to the interpreter. I only heard one word I recognized. What? Death. He says it is the wild man, the thorn finger, the many deaths. He comes in the night and takes the weak, the alone. The old man tapped his finger. He has a long claw on his left finger. He pokes a hole in your neck while you sleep and takes your blood. Rick said he broke the fucker's arm, and the elder seemed delighted. Pain it caused him, and it will be time before he is well again, but he will be. But a sinister enemy you have made, one that 5 of us would give our lives to see dead. Have you seen him again? Rick shook his head. Always watch over your shoulder. Never be alone. Never be in the deep sands. A man in our village once shot Thornfinger, and we rejoiced, but we found him dried like a raisin in his bed the next season. During that last part, the elder sucked his cheeks in and crossed his arms across his chest. Rick asked a few more questions about other experiences, but there were not too many. Apparently, old Forney was pretty good at his job. Later that night, the elder found us and pulled a lightly wrapped cloth out of his tunic, an action that would have gotten him killed if he was not known to us. I can't tell you how high-strung you have to be over there. It was a knife with a bone handle and a yellowish, reddish, silver blade. Very old. My Sinahash, my right arm. Before the cowards came, the peace speakers, this was what ruled. In my arm it was war, but in yours it will be salvation from revenge. Keep it close, keep it warm. Rick started rummaging around for something to trade. Blood will be enough. Black blood is worth its weight, and he left. Even though this does not relate to the story, I'm going to go a little off topic of how in awe I personally was of the elder. He was probably 40 years older than me, and I still think he could have killed me in a fight. He had survived through countless raids and attacks. Puckers and stitch scars covered his arms and chest. He was missing his ring finger on his left hand. A good trade, he once told me. He took my finger, I took his head, and his wife. but he was a double-edged sword. He was ruthless and vigilant at the same time. If he was on your side, you would call him a hero, but if you were against him, you would call him a tyrant. Luckily, we were on his side. But, as you walked with him through the streets, you would see men lower their heads and step back. Women pull their children close. Americans are too kind, he once told me. If I were in your position, I would have ruined this country. I would have killed everyone who had ever stood against me, he said, clenching his fists. Only the strong would be left, whether allies or enemies. They would be strong, and the weak would be rooted out. He reminded me a lot of John, Steve's grandfather, my great-grandfather, in some warped, twisted way. Sorry for that digression. Spring came, and with it, a mix of fog, rain, and light dust storms. In other words, tank hell. Missions kept coming in. People kept saying we were going to get withdrawn. Then more missions would come in. Morale was not well. We were eventually placed on the outskirts of a city and tilted high to offer fire support for a push that was happening later the next day. As noon came, we watched a light dust storm on the horizon come closer and locked everything up. This was not going to be a big one, just an inconvenience. The inside of a tank is a strange place during a dust storm. It is ungodly hot and quiet, and somehow, you feel like you just got teleported back to training, and as long as you did not look through the periscope, you were back in the States. Then we heard the clicking. It was a nice, clear tick 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 on the roof of the hatch. Rick looked at me and shook his head. It went like that for a few hours. Tick tick tick, silence, tick tick tick. I kept checking the scopes, waiting for the storm to die down, and each time I did, I expected to see a small, black eye peering back at me. Finally, the storm ended, and Rick pulled the knife out of his belt and drew his M9, telling the loader and I to do the same with a nod. I grabbed the M4. I don't know why Rick always went with the pistol. He went out of the hatch first. I was right behind him. Now, there isn't a whole lot of large game in Iraq, mostly some goats or scrawny-ass cows, but it's not like they are walking around in the middle of the desert or something. But there we were. The tank that was splattered with goat's blood, with the puckered corpses lined up in a neat row by our right tread. Fuck me, said Rick. I declined. There were maybe 8 or 9 goats there. I had not seen more than 5 up until then. We walked around the tank a few times, but there was not much to see other than sand and blood. We packed it up and got back in the tank, got an order over at IVIS to move north a ways. Sitting in the cabin, the loader and I made small talk while Rick was getting real friendly with that knife of his, looking up from time to time at wisps of sand coming in the hatch. The tank lurched to a stop with fuck 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 shouts from the driver. We flew into action. I hit the scope, catching the loader slide open the shell door as I turned around. At this point, we thought we were under fire, jumping out of my skin as Rick yelled behind me. I turned around just in time to see his boots get pulled up through the hatch. I followed after, but did not see anything. Not a goddamn thing. My pulse was pounding in my ears, my heart jumping in my chest. I heard Rick shout somewhere, and as I turned around to look at where his voice was coming from, I slipped on that damn goat's blood and fell face first into the sand. I felt a knee land in the center of my back and a hand wrap around my throat, another hand pushing my face into the sand. Then the scream, followed by a hot liquid on the back of my neck that smelled like raw sewage. Immediately, the weight on my back jumped off. I rolled over and saw Rick running up the tank, hopping in the gunner hatch and cooking the M240 while spinning it around 180 and firing it off in the distance. I pulled myself up and dusted off while I ran over to the tank. Thus we survived our second encounter. Rick would not say much else other than, I kicked its ass, then it saw you, but he was visibly shaken by the event. He would not tell anyone what it looked like. The only thing I had to go off of was that black, leathery arm and a crouched thermal image. It's black paste now. It's not going to survive a cut like that. He wrapped up the knife, with the blood still on it, and gave it to the elder the next time we were there. Much, much later. I'm glad to hear you guys liked Rick. He has been reading the thread now. I might have a picture laying around to send John, I haven't really described what he looks like, so hopefully it won't ruin any mental images of him. Also, we fought Chupacabra when we first messed with this thing, as it seemed to be a real thing with a body, instead of a ghost alien creature. Our deployment took a rough turn. An old shithouse went to hell back in northern Iraq, where there are no terrorists and peace is taking over, apparently. Quoting a Fox News briefing that we watched on a mini black and white TV in the evening while eating whatever we could find. Iraq is a way of burning your ass off during the day, then freezing it back on you at night, and we were just starting to feel the chill of night leak in under the door of our makeshift mini barracks. One by one, we fell asleep, but were woken up shortly by a yelp from one of the soldiers near the door. Yelps were common out there, as the native spiders have a love for human faces. Something was touching my face, he yelled. Rick was up now, and started lighting up a pipe. It looked like Rick was enforcing his own personal watch tonight. I woke up and heard something breathing over me. I thought it was one of you guys trying to prank me or something, so I just laid there still. Then it touched my face. A shiver went through him, and he pulled his uniform tight. Rick was at his feet now, looking at the clay floor. Little black dots were sprinkled sparsely around, just 5 or 6, but enough that you could see that something had walked to and from the door, something leaking black, smelly fluids. That poor guy got teased pretty bad. Most of the men in there probably did think it was a prank, and that the pranker had gotten away unnoticed. Rick and the rest of the shithouse knew better. Get some shut-eye. I'm staying up for a while, said Rick. I did. We woke up the next morning. I noticed Rick was gone. I walked outside into the sun to look for him. No sign. Maybe he took a walk. Not really like him. I did a short stroll around the building and found a set of his boot prints. They headed off into the desert. I followed them with my eyes up to the horizon, then yelled out. There was a single line of black smoke rising up over the horizon, a neat little line, not the big plumes of acrid black smoke we were used to seeing. Within minutes, I and the crew were in a Humvee, zipping along the sand, with 2 others tailing. I sat in the passenger seat. Part of me remembered the previous night, the look on Rick's face as he sucked on that pipe that he had bribed off of a farmer, a look of calm. Not the expression you would expect from someone who survived 2 attempted maulings from some desert wild man, but I knew that look well. It was what he looked like before he kicked ass. A figure formed on the horizon, which was rising fast as we sped along. I tensed up a little, but relaxed as I saw that it was standing upright. We could hear static over the radios. What the hell is he doing out here? We got closer. Rick was standing with his back to us, a small fire in front of him. His head, which was standard military bald, had scrapes and cuts all along it. Part of his left sleeve was torn. In his right hand, he held his bone handle knife. In his left, a gas can. We pulled up and spun around him. He was watching over a fire, burning lightly in the middle of black-stained sand. Most of the soldiers around us had their hands over their face and cussing to themselves. The smell was terrible. Their cussing increased as they got closer to the burn. What looked like wood from a distance was actually a skeleton, charred and black, with small bits of burning flesh still clinging from the bones. It was a small skeleton. You would not put it over a child, but it was all wrong. Its back legs were bent double backwards like a dog's, with feet that ended in toes with long, curled nails. The skull had a small face on it, a jaw filled with rows of small, sharp teeth, like a piranha. Its right hand was missing its pointer finger, and seemed to be reaching up at Rick's neck, trying one last time for revenge. No one really asked questions about that event. No one was reported missing. No one with sharp teeth anyways, so the idea of Rick kidnapping and murdering someone was quickly forgotten. A group of brass drove over the next day to check it out, but the skeleton was gone. Only the black-stained sand remained. Not long after that, on our tour back for Iraq, we stopped at the elder's house. We sat and waited for a long time in his lobby, I guess you could call it, until him and his son emerged from a black room. His son was terribly beaten, bleeding badly out of the nose and left ear. Senior, which I will call Elder for clarity, was breathing heavily and wiping his hands with cloth. Junior started to leave, but his father pushed him down in a seat across from us. "Sit down and listen for once, you damned idiot," he said to us, translated via our interpreter. Both Rick and I noticed him, interpreter, readying himself for combat, tensing shoulders, moving his rifle forward ever so slightly. Damn newbies. I sort of feel sorry for him in retrospect. He came with us with absolutely no previous knowledge of his events. "I've come to return your gift," said Rick. It was well used. As Rick talked, he pulled the wrapped knife out of the cloth and handed it to Senior. Senior grinned and slid his finger around the hilt of the knife, showing the black residue on his finger to his son, who seemed to be playing in and out of consciousness. I also brought a gift of my own. Rick pulled out a little wooden box. I'd seen him use it for tobacco before. Great, I thought. He gave the senior tobacco. The senior looked curious and opened the box, then gasped and dropped it to the floor, sending the finger in it, bouncing along the tile. The finger's skin was black and leathery, and it had a single long claw, almost a talon, erupting from the end. Both the son and our interpreter jumped at the sight of it. "What did you do to it? He will come to reclaim," Senior started. "He's not coming to reclaim shit. I burnt his ass out in the desert. I stood out there and called him out, and he lost." "Burnt," mumbled Senior, as he picked up the finger and turned it slowly. "You see, this is what you should have been," he said to his son. "This man seeks evil and destroys it. If you saw anything, imagine where you would be now." Our interpreter started to relay this to us, but Senior held up his hand and motioned for him to leave. Rick waved him off. Senior jabbered at Junior, who was starting to slump forward. I was not really in the mood for a family argument, and neither was Rick, but we sat there out of politeness until he gave his motion to leave. The son jumped up suddenly and grabbed his father by the throat. Rick and I stood up on reflex. You are always ready for someone to grab someone else by the throat. My instinct was to raise my hand to calm him down. Rick's instinct was to lunge over to Junior and smash his face in with the back of his Beretta. Junior toppled backwards onto the floor and started bleeding heavily from a wound in his side. Senior was still holding the knife, now dripping with his son's blood. We were on the flight back to the States, crammed like sardines into a plane. Rick stirred forward, not much for small talk, and I chattered back and forth with some other soldiers. "Steve, what did you hope to get out of all of this? Why did you join up in the first place?" asked Rick, surprising me enough to have me completely abandon my other conversation. "I don't know. College, I guess. For the good of America, that sort of thing. Why did you join up?" "I joined up in the hopes that I would not have to come back," he said, and I saw his thoughts wander to a bone-handled knife that was hidden away in his personal sack, and a small tobacco box sealed shut with a bead of wax. Damn that thing, and damn that place to hell. What happened that night? I went out there with the gas can to burn it, to kill it. It followed me for a long time, teasing me by tapping its damn finger on rocks. Finally, it jumped, and I got the best of it after a while. He did not grin or smile when he told me this, and I heard the undertones in what he was trying to say to me. When he left that night, he did not want to come back. My other war experiences. I can't say much, other than that we were in the first wave, sent into the Persian Gulf War. You'll have to read between the lines, I guess, to get any more information about that. About Fox News, they have always been stupid. I had sent out a few emails to old friends, asking for stories. Only got one back so far from Michael, one of Steve's school friends that joined up with him. God, there was all sorts of weird shit over there, but only one thing that happened to me personally. One of the big things that the people talk about over there, especially out from the major cities, are these well tricksters, which is what we called them. They were described to me as a big-ass lizard thing that crawls backwards into wells at night so that most of their body is underwater and only their head is above water. The tip of its nose has a pattern like a human face on it. The next day, when people drop the buckets in, they come up dry because they landed on the lizard's nose. The lizard also has a more sinister side. When it is hungry, it will start calling out in a voice that you know. Soldiers, trained soldiers, would say they heard their wife or kids calling out to them from inside of the wells. I would like to say that I was not a believer in the supernatural, but I was nuts at the time about ghosts and whatnot, so I took every opportunity to walk around wells. Nothing happened for a long time, until I think I was just on the Iraq-southern border. Either that, or we were still in Kuwait. I don't really remember where it was. I remember the event well though. We were walking along when AK fire started up, sending us scattering against walls and corners and whatever else we could get behind. I got behind a well. We began returning fire. For some reason, I started thinking of my sisters there in that firefight, especially the youngest one. For some reason, I thought I could hear her calling my name. My body was on autopilot, popping and shooting, then covering up again. But deep in my brain, I could hear her calling me, telling me she was in trouble. The fight stopped as soon as it started, like most did over there, and I found myself leaning over the well. I could almost see an outline of a face in the water, far, far below. I dug through my jacket and pulled out a glow stick, popped it, and threw it in. The face disappeared, and the glow stick floated there for a few seconds, then vanished with a splash. The face reappeared. I decided I did not want much to do with Arabic superstition after that. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I was in the military, psychological operations. I know it's a big subject of conspiracy tier bullshit, but Psych Ops has nothing to do with staring at goods. It's actually just lying, manipulating, scaring and confusing the enemy, although there has been some pretty fucked up stuff done by Psych Ops to serve that goal. Anyways, I have a nope story. Be in a little sandbox in Iraq, right on the edge of the border with Iran. It gets mortared weekly, but they cannot aim for shit. One night, we hear shots fired. Everyone responds. I get up on the platform behind the cement walls to glance out in the night with night vision. I see nothing out there. The guy who belongs on the platform gets to his post. With him there, I don't have any official post. We have a defense force of Iraqis surrounding the base. We decide to go to talk to them. They were actually pretty bro tier with us. I am walking along the gravel and get an electric shock across my leg. What the fuck? I look for exposed wire. There is nothing. I get to the Iraqis. They are spooked as fuck. One of their guys is fucking shot. He got shot in the fucking back, and they have not seen anything. I call the medic over, but it is too late. The guy is already dead. The Iraqis are freaking out, saying that something must be inside the camp. I tried to tell him that cannot be the case. We have night vision cameras all over the place, and they would have seen anything coming from miles around. Another Iraqi jumps all of a sudden. He says he felt something shock his leg. Usually, we keep all of the lights off at night. Having them on would make us an easier target, but fuck it. If someone was out there waiting to mortar us, we would see them on the camera. We put the floodlights on. Everyone is crawling all over the camp. There is nothing there. We never find out who shot the guy. We never find out what the hell those shocks were.